My name is Melissa. I'm 31. And last Wednesday afternoon, my entire family learned that their years of mockery had been pointless. Grandpa Joe's will named me, the family failure, as his sole heir to $14 million. I made one decision standing in that lawyer's office watching their faces crumble. I wouldn't apologize for being loved. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your location in the comments and hit subscribe to hear how the family reject became the only one who mattered. Let me paint the picture of who I was to them. The middle child who dropped out of Stanford pre-med after 2 semesters. The one who became a kindergarten teacher making $32,000 a year instead of a surgeon like my older brother Daniel. The one who drove a 2011 Honda Civic with duct tape holding the bumper while my younger sister Alexandra cruised in her white Mercedes. Every family gathering was torture. Thanksgiving at my parents', Colonial in Westchester, a masterclass in subtle humiliation. Melissa's here, Mom, Patricia would announce. Hide the good wine, she can only appreciate the cheap stuff. Then she'd laugh like it was hilarious, not cruel. My father, Robert Jr., was worse with his quiet disappointment. He'd been CFO of 3 Fortune 500 companies, and I was his greatest failure. When are you going to do something real with your life? He'd ask, as if teaching 25 5-year-olds to read wasn't real. Daniel, 34, chief of surgery at Mount Sinai, never missed a chance. Still finger painting, Mel, he'd say, his wife Victoria smirking beside him in her designer everything. Their twin boys went to private school that cost more than my yearly salary. Alexandra, 28, was a corporate lawyer at Wilson & Associates, engaged to Preston, whose family owned half of Martha's Vineyard. She particularly enjoyed comparing our lives. It's so sweet that you're content with so little, she'd say, examining her fresh manicure that cost more than my weekly groceries. But there was Grandpa Joe, Joseph William Patterson, 87, retired federal judge, widower for 15 years. While everyone else saw my failures, he saw me. Every Sunday without fail, I'd drive my embarrassing car to his estate in Greenwich, and we'd play chess, drink coffee, and talk about everything except money or success. The others visited him exactly 3 times a year, his birthday, Christmas, and the Patterson Foundation Gala where they could network. They'd stay precisely 1 hour, check their phones constantly, and leave the moment politeness allowed. I came every Sunday for 8 years, often staying until he fell asleep in his library chair. The call came Tuesday evening while I was grading spelling tests. Marcus Webb, Grandpa's lawyer for 40 years, sounded formal but somehow amused. Miss Patterson, your grandfather's will reading is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your attendance is mandatory. Mandatory? Your grandfather's specific instruction. He said, and I quote, "Make sure Melissa is there. She needs to see their faces." I almost didn't go. Taking a day off meant losing pay I couldn't afford, and sitting through another family gathering where they'd mock my beat-up Honda in the parking lot between their BMWs and Teslas felt like voluntary torture. But Grandpa had asked, so I went. Webb, Morrison and Associates occupied the top floor of a Manhattan high-rise. The elevator ride with my family was excruciating. Mom commented on my outfit, a 5-year-old black dress from Target. Melissa, dear, you know they make steamers for wrinkles? Daniel checked his Rolex repeatedly, complaining about missing surgery. Alexandra whispered to Preston about their upcoming Aspen trip. The conference room could have fit my entire apartment twice. Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with documents spread before him. Also present were my aunts Catherine and Elizabeth, Dad's sisters who lived in Boston and visited Grandpa even less than my immediate family, and their husbands, both investment bankers who couldn't hide their impatience. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began. Joseph Patterson passed away peacefully last Sunday evening. The tears that appeared were remarkably dry. Mom dabbed her eyes without smudging makeup. Daniel looked appropriately solemn while texting under the table. Alexandra was already eyeing the Monet on the wall, probably calculating its value. Before we begin, Marcus continued. Joseph left video messages to be played during the reading. He turned on a large screen, and Grandpa appeared, recorded just 2 weeks before his death. He looked frail, but his eyes were sharp, that mischievous glint I knew so well. "If you're watching this," Grandpa said, "then you're all gathered for the reading of my will. Most of you are here for the money. One of you is here because you actually gave a damn about me." The room shifted uncomfortably. Mom's grieving widow act faltered. "Let's start with some truths," Grandpa continued. "Daniel, you visited me 11 times in 8 years. I counted. Each visit averaged 43 minutes. You spent most of it on your phone. That Rolex you're probably checking right now? You looked at it more than you looked at me." Daniel's hand dropped from his wrist. "Alexandra, sweet Alexandra, you came 9 times. Twice you brought Preston to network with the judge. You asked about my investment portfolio every single visit. When I had pneumonia 2 years ago, you sent a text." A text. Alexandra's face flushed red. Preston squeezed her hand but looked uncomfortable. The video continued, and Grandpa's voice grew harder. "Robert Jr., my only son, you inherited my name but nothing else. 40 years in business, and you never learned that wealth without wisdom is worthless. You visited 15 times in 8 years, always with an agenda. Twice for loans you never repaid. 3 times to ask me to call in favors for your deals. The rest to maintain appearances." Dad's jaw clenched, his CFO composure cracking. "This is inappropriate," he muttered. "Patricia," Grandpa's image turned as if looking directly at Mom. "You married my son for the Patterson name and connections. In 35 years, you never once asked about my late wife, your children's grandmother. You redecorated her rose garden the day after her funeral. You thought I didn't notice." Mom's perfectly maintained face showed the first genuine emotion I'd seen in years: fear. "Catherine and Elizabeth, my daughters, you moved to Boston to escape me, then complained I never visited. You sent birthday cards with your assistant's handwriting. When I called, you had them say you were in meetings. Always in meetings." The aunts exchanged glances, their banker husbands suddenly very interested in their phones. "But then there's Melissa." Grandpa's face softened, and he smiled. That warm, genuine smile I saw every Sunday. 416 Sundays. That's how many times Melissa came to see me. Not for networking, not for money, not for the Patterson name. She came because she cared. Everyone turned to stare at me. I kept my eyes on the screen, tears rolling down my cheeks. She brought me tea when I was sick. She learned chess because I loved it. She listened to my stories about the war, about your grandmother, about my cases. When everyone said she was the family failure, she was succeeding at the only thing that matters: being human. Daniel called her a disappointment for leaving medical school. You want to know why she left? She discovered she loved teaching children more than the prestige of being a doctor. That takes courage you'll never have, Daniel. Daniel's surgeon's hands clenched into fists. Alexandra mocked her salary, her car, her apartment, but Melissa never asked me for a penny. Not once in 8 years. While Alexandra was calculating my net worth, Melissa was teaching migrant children to read for free on weekends. Robert and Patricia, you raised 3 children, but only one of them learned what I tried to teach: that money is just paper if you don't have someone who loves you for you. The screen went black for a moment, then Grandpa reappeared, which brings us to the will. Marcus paused the video. Before we continue, I need everyone to understand that Joseph was evaluated by 3 separate psychiatrists in his final month. All confirmed he was completely mentally competent. I have their reports here. Get on with it, Aunt Catherine snapped. Marcus resumed the video. To my daughters Catherine and Elizabeth, Grandpa's voice resumed, I leave $1 each. You wanted nothing to do with me in life. You get nothing from me in death. Aunt Catherine gasped. He can't do that. We're his daughters. Marcus raised a hand for silence. To my son, Robert Jr., I leave my complete collection of ethics and philosophy books. 4,000 volumes. Read them. You might learn something. Also, $1 to prove I didn't forget you. Dad stood up. This is insane. I'm his son. His only son. Please sit down, Mr. Patterson, Marcus said calmly. There's more. To Patricia, my daughter-in-law, I leave my wife Helen's costume jewelry, the pieces you always assumed were real. Surprise! Helen sold the real ones years ago to fund the literacy program Melissa now volunteers for. Consider it a lesson in assumptions. Mom's face went white. She'd been bragging about inheriting the Patterson jewels for years. To Daniel, my grandson the surgeon, I leave my medical textbooks from when I considered medicine before law. They're 60 years out of date, like your attitude toward your sister. Also, the bill for the $40,000 I loaned you for your house down payment. It's due immediately. What loan? Victoria whispered. Daniel had told her his success was all his own. To Alexandra, my granddaughter the lawyer, I leave my law library, all $200,000 worth of books. You may not sell them for 50 years. Consider it an investment in actually learning law, instead of just practicing it for money. Alexandra's calculator brain was spinning. $200,000 she couldn't touch. To Preston, who's wondering what he's getting for marrying into this family, nothing. You chose Alexandra for her name and connections. You got what you deserve. Preston shifted uncomfortably, his entitlement evaporating. Which brings me to Melissa. Grandpa paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was warm. Melissa, my dear one, my Sunday sunshine. You never asked what you'd inherit, so I'll tell you everything else. The room exploded. What? Daniel roared. The house in Greenwich, valued at $8 million, the apartment in Manhattan, $3 million, the investment portfolio, roughly $2 million, the Patterson Foundation's directorship, my cars, my art, my everything, $14 million, give or take, all to the one person who never wanted it. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. This had to be a mistake. But wait, Grandpa's voice cut through the chaos. There's one condition. The room fell silent. Melissa must use part of the inheritance to create a literacy program for underprivileged children. She must also continue our Sunday tradition by visiting residents at senior homes who have no visitors. And finally, she must never, ever apologize for being chosen. The video had one final message. To those of you plotting to contest this will, know that I've prepared for that. Marcus has documentation of every visit, every call, every interaction for the past decade. I have recordings of Daniel saying he couldn't wait for me to die. I have Patricia on tape calling me a tiresome old fool. I have Alexandra's emails to Preston about my net worth. Try to fight this, and it all becomes public. The screen went black. The room was silent except for Mom's sharp breathing. Marcus cleared his throat. There are also individual letters for each of you. He passed out envelopes. Joseph requested you read them privately. Melissa, yours includes keys and account information. Daniel was the first to explode. This is bullshit, she manipulated him. She visited him, Marcus interrupted, every Sunday for 8 years. While you were building your career on his connections, she was building a relationship. I had surgeries. I had responsibilities. You had priorities, I said quietly, my first words since entering, and Grandpa wasn't one of them. Alexandra stood, her lawyer instincts kicking in. We'll contest this. Undue influence, mental incapacity, something. Marcus smiled. You're welcome to try. Joseph anticipated this. He had video recordings of every Sunday visit with Melissa. 416 videos of them playing chess, talking, laughing. No manipulation, just genuine affection. He also has recordings of your visits, checking phones, asking for money, leaving early. You recorded us? Mom shrieked. Security cameras, Marcus explained. Joseph installed them 5 years ago after Catherine's husband tried to steal a Rembrandt during Christmas dinner. Uncle Richard went red. That was a misunderstanding. Joseph also wanted me to inform you, Marcus continued, that the Foundation's board meets monthly. As the new director, Melissa will oversee the charitable giving. He suggested you might want to be nice to her if you ever want Foundation grants for your various causes. The power shift was seismic. The family failure now controlled the family fortune. Victoria grabbed Daniel's arm. $40,000 loan? You told me your success was self-made. Not here. he hissed. Preston looked at Alexandra with new calculation in his eyes. Her value had just plummeted. Dad stood slowly, his CFO dignity in tatters. "Melissa, surely we can discuss this. You're not equipped to handle this kind of wealth. I could help." "The way you helped Grandpa by borrowing money you never repaid?" I asked. His face darkened. "Watch yourself, young lady. You're still my daughter." "Am I? Because you've spent 10 years telling everyone I'm your biggest disappointment." Mom tried a different approach, tears appearing on cue. "Melissa, sweetheart, we're family. Surely Grandpa wouldn't want this to divide us." "Divide us?" I laughed, actually laughed. "We've been divided for years. You just never noticed because you were too busy looking down on me." "That's not true. We love you." "You love me. When Daniel got into medical school, you threw a party for 200 people. When I got my teaching certificate, you asked if I was sure I couldn't do better. When Alexandra passed the bar, you sent announcements to everyone. When I was named Teacher of the Year, you didn't even call. Teaching awards don't matter. Mom started, then caught herself." "And that's exactly the problem," I said. "To you, I don't matter. I never have. The only person in this family who saw value in me just died, and you're angry that he left me money? You should be angry that you never knew him at all." I picked up my keys, my hands surprisingly steady. "Marcus, when can I visit the properties?" "Immediately. Joseph wanted you to move into whichever you prefer as soon as possible. He said, and I quote, 'Melissa needs to stop living like she's worth less than she is.'" Aunt Elizabeth stood. "This is disgusting. We're his children." "You're strangers who share his DNA," I said, finding strength I didn't know I had. "There's a difference." "You little," she started, but Marcus interrupted. "There's one more thing. Joseph left a social media file. Screenshots of every post where you mocked Melissa. Daniel calling her, the family charity case, Alexandra's Instagram story about her, teacher sister who'll never afford Prada, Patricia's Facebook post about being embarrassed by Melissa's car at the country club." Everyone went pale. They'd forgotten the internet is forever. "He wanted you to know he saw everything. Every cruelty, every mockery, every time you made Melissa feel small. He saw it all, and he made his choice." Daniel grabbed his coat. "Come on, Victoria, we're leaving." "We need to talk about that loan," Victoria said coldly. Alexandra was texting furiously, probably damage control. Preston was ominously silent. Dad approached me one last time. "You're making a mistake. You don't know how to manage this kind of wealth." "No," I said. "I don't know how to waste it on status and appearances. But I know how to use it for good. Grandpa taught me that." "This isn't over," he warned. "Yes, it is. It was over the moment you chose to see me as a failure instead of your daughter." They filed out one by one, each pausing to glare at me. Mom stopped last. "The house in Greenwich was supposed to be mine." "No," I corrected. "It was always Grandpa's, and he gave it to the only person who visited it for him, not for what they could inherit." After they left, Marcus and I sat alone in the conference room. The silence felt peaceful after the storm. "He loved you very much," Marcus said. "In 40 years of managing his affairs, I never saw Joseph as happy as during your visits. I didn't know about the money. I need you to know that." "I never—" "Melissa," he interrupted gently, "Joseph knew that. It's why you got everything. You were the only one who loved him without a price tag." He handed me a personal letter from Grandpa, separate from the will. I opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest Melissa, if you're reading this, then the wolves have shown their teeth, and you're probably wondering why I did this to you. The truth is, I didn't do it to you, I did it for you. For 10 years, I watched your family dim your light because you chose compassion over ambition. They mocked your career, your car, your choices, never understanding that you were the only one who got it right. Every Sunday, you brought sunshine into my life, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. While Daniel was calculating his inheritance, you were teaching me to use Netflix. While Alexandra was networking, you were holding my hand during doctor visits I never told the others about. While your parents were embarrassed by you, You were making me proud. The money isn't a reward, it's a responsibility. Use it to continue being exactly who you are, just with better resources. Keep teaching, but now you can fund the supplies your school won't provide. Keep volunteering, but now you can expand the programs. Keep visiting lonely old people, because there are so many of us, forgotten by families who only remember we exist when we die. Don't let them make you feel guilty. They had 8 years to earn this inheritance. They chose golf games and galas instead. You chose Sunday chess and terrible coffee. Yes, I knew it was terrible, but you drank it anyway because I made it. Move into the Greenwich house. It's too big for one person, so fill it with life. Host literacy programs in the library. Turn the ballroom into an after-school center. Make it what it always should have been, a home, not a showcase. Finally, know this. In my will, I called you my granddaughter. In my heart, you are the daughter I wish I'd had. You are everything good that family should be. All my love, Grandpa Joe. P.S. Your brother owes more than $40,000. Check the records. Your father owes $90,000. Your mother charged $70,000 in shopping to my accounts over the years. Alexandra borrowed $30,000 for law school. The only person who never took from me was you. I sobbed then, really sobbed. Not prettily like mom's practiced tears, but ugly, genuine grief. Marcus waited patiently, then handed me tissues. There's more. Joseph set aside an additional $2 million specifically for your teaching initiatives. It's separate from the inheritance, untouchable by anyone else. He also paid off your student loans and credit cards as of last month. He what? $23,000 in student loans. $4,000 in credit card debt. He said you'd never accept it if you knew. So he did it quietly. I drove to Greenwich that evening in my duct-taped Honda, probably the last time it would enter through those iron gates. The security guard, Thomas, who'd worked there for 20 years, was crying. Miss Melissa, Mr. Joe left me a letter saying you'd be taking over. I'm so glad it's you. Those others. He stopped himself. It's okay, Thomas. I know what they're like. He loved you so much. Talked about you constantly. My Melissa's coming Sunday, he'd say. It was the highlight of his week. The house was massive. 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a library with 20,000 books, a ballroom that hadn't seen a party in years. But it also had Grandpa's touches everywhere. His reading chair, his chess set, his coffee mug still in the kitchen. I found Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, packing her things in tears. What are you doing? I asked. The family will want their own staff, I understand. Mrs. Chen, the family doesn't own this anymore. I do. And I want you to stay if you're willing. She hugged me then, this dignified, 70-year-old woman who'd watched my family treat her like furniture for years. Your grandfather hoped you'd keep me. He worried I was too old to find new work. You have a job as long as you want it. Same with Thomas and everyone else. That night, I walked through the house alone. In Grandpa's study, I found photo albums. Hundreds of pictures of Grandma Helen, of Dad as a child before ambition consumed him, of the aunts before they married money and moved away. But the most recent album was entirely me. Every Sunday visit, he'd had Mrs. Chen take pictures. Me playing chess, me reading to him, me asleep in the library chair after a long week teaching. 416 Sundays documented. The last photo was from 2 weeks ago, our final Sunday. I was laughing at something he'd said, and he was looking at me with such love it took my breath away. On the back, in his shaky handwriting, my real granddaughter. My phone exploded with messages. Daniel, you're gonna regret this. Alexandra, this isn't over. Mom, how could you do this to us? But also unexpected ones. Victoria, Daniel lied about everything. I'm leaving him. Congratulations, Melissa. You deserved it. Preston, your sister isn't who I thought she was. Neither are you. You're better. Then one that made me smile, from my teacher friend Sarah. Saw the news. Your family is saying horrible things on Facebook, but everyone knows you spent every Sunday with him. You're trending on teacher Twitter as the kindergarten teacher who inherited millions. We're all celebrating. The news had broken. By morning, it would be everywhere. The family failure who became the family fortune. The next morning, I was front page news. Kindergarten teacher inherits $14 million fortune. Family furious. The New York Post was less subtle. Teacher's pet. How a public school educator became a millionaire overnight. My principal called. Melissa, there are reporters at the school. Parents are asking questions. Maybe you should take some time off. I'll be there Monday, I said. I'm not abandoning my kids mid-year because I inherited money. But you don't need to work anymore. Yes, I do, just not for the money. Daniel released a statement through his hospital's PR department, distancing himself from the family dispute and emphasizing his successful career. But patients started canceling surgeries, not wanting a doctor who'd neglected his dying grandfather. Alexandra's law firm put her on leave pending an investigation into the financial allegations Grandpa had hinted at. Preston broke their engagement via text, according to her furious Instagram story before she deleted it. Dad's company stock dropped 12% when the loan defaults were revealed. Mom's charity committees started dropping her from events. But the cruelest blow to them came from an unexpected source. Grandpa's final video, which Marcus released to the media at Grandpa's instruction. To those who wonder why I disinherited my children and most grandchildren, know this. Money reveals character. For 8 years, I watched my family reveal theirs. Only Melissa showed me who she really was. Kind without expectation, loving without condition, present without agenda. The public response was immediate and brutal. #TeamMelissa started trending. My family's social media filled with comments calling them out. Someone found Alexandra's old posts mocking teachers, salaries, and created a viral meme. I returned to my kindergarten classroom Monday morning. 25 5-year-olds didn't care that I was rich. They cared that I was there. "Miss Melissa, are you a princess now?" little Emma asked. "No, sweetie. I'm still just your teacher." "But you have a castle." "It's just a big house. And you know what? This summer, we're going to have reading camp there. Would you like that?" The squeals of delight were worth more than $14 million. That afternoon, a woman approached me in the parking lot. Designer everything. Perfectly styled, but tired eyes. "You don't know me," she said. "I'm Janet Morrison. My father was federal judge Harold Morrison." I knew the name. Grandpa had mentioned him, another federal judge, retired, living in a nursing home. "Dad talks about your grandfather all the time." They were close friends. He hasn't had a visitor in 2 years. "My siblings and I are all too busy." She looked ashamed. "I saw what you did for your grandfather. Would you consider visiting mine?" I visited Judge Morrison that Sunday. He was 91, sharp as a tack, and desperately lonely. "You're Joe's Melissa," he said immediately. "He talked about you constantly. Said you were the only real person in a family of performers." We played chess. He destroyed me in 12 moves and talked about Grandpa. He told me stories I'd never heard, about their younger days as lawyers before becoming judges. "Joe called me the day he changed his will," Harold said. Asked if he was being cruel. I told him cruelty would be rewarding people who treated him like an ATM. I started visiting him every Sunday, taking over Grandpa's time slot. Word spread through the nursing home, and soon I had a list of residents who never had visitors. By month's end, I was organizing Sunday social hours, bringing in my kindergartners to read to the elderly. The Greenwich House became exactly what Grandpa wanted. The library hosted after-school tutoring. The ballroom was converted into a literacy center. The gardens became a community space for senior citizens. My family tried to contest the will, as expected. But Marcus had been thorough. The court hearing was brief. "Your Honor, my family's lawyer argued Melissa Patterson used undue influence over a vulnerable elderly man." Marcus presented the 416 videos. The judge watched a sampling. Grandpa teaching me chess, me reading to him, us laughing at old movies, me helping with his medications, him helping me grade papers. Then he watched videos of the others' visits. Daniel on his phone the entire time, Alexandra asking about investment accounts. My parents literally timing their visit to leave after exactly 1 hour. Case dismissed, the judge ruled, with prejudice. And frankly, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Outside the courthouse, Mom made one last attempt. Melissa, please, we're being destroyed. The media, the public shame. You've won. Can't you show mercy? The way you showed me mercy every time you called me a failure? That was different. You're right. It was worse. I was your daughter. I needed your approval, your love. Instead, you gave me shame and mockery. Grandpa gave me what you never could, acceptance. Daniel's life imploded further. Victoria divorced him, taking half of everything and revealing his affairs with nurses. The hospital demoted him from chief of surgery. He blamed me in a drunk voicemail. You destroyed everything. You were supposed to stay the family failure. Alexandra was disbarred after the investigation revealed she'd been overbilling clients. She moved back home with our parents, her Instagram influencer dreams crushed. 6 months after the will reading, I received an unexpected call. It was Daniel's ex-wife, Victoria. I wanted to apologize, she said, for all the years I stood by while they mocked you. I knew it was wrong, but I was so caught up in the prestige of being married to a surgeon. You don't need to apologize, Victoria. Yes, I do. You were the only genuine person in that family, and we all knew it. That's why they mocked you. You made them feel inferior by being real. She told me about Daniel's loans from Grandpa, not $40,000, but $300,000 over the years, all hidden from her, all spent on gambling and affairs. He called you the family failure while he was failing at everything that mattered, she said. I'm pregnant, Melissa, and I want my child to know their aunt, the real one, not the facade the others present. This fractured my family further. Daniel accused me of stealing his wife, though they'd been divorced for months. Mom called Victoria a traitor. Dad threatened legal action over something. He was grasping at straws. But unexpected allies emerged. 3 of my cousins reached out, admitting they'd always admired my closeness with Grandpa, but had been afraid to go against the family narrative. Grandpa's elderly sister, Aunt Rose, who lived in Florida, called to say she was proud of me. Joey told me everything, she said. How they treated you, how they treated him. He made the right choice. You're the only Patterson who acts like one. The Literacy Center thrived. We served 300 children in the first 6 months. The senior program expanded to 5 nursing homes. The Greenwich House hosted weekly dinners for isolated elderly people. Mrs. Chen became like family. She'd never had children, and she started teaching me to cook Grandpa's favorite meals. He always said you worked too hard to eat properly, she explained, showing me how to make his beloved pot roast. One evening, while sorting through Grandpa's study, I found a hidden compartment in his desk. Inside were letters he'd written to me but never sent, dating back years. One from when I started teaching. Melissa chose purpose over profit today. Her parents are furious she's wasting her Stanford education. I've never been prouder. She'll change lives they could never touch with their money. Another from when Daniel bought his 3rd luxury car. Daniel visited today to show off his new Porsche. Stayed 20 minutes. Melissa came after, exhausted from teaching, stayed 4 hours. She drives a dying Honda, but she's richer than he'll ever be. The most recent, dated a week before his death. I'm leaving Melissa everything tomorrow. The family will explode. But she needs to know she was always enough, always worthy, always loved. The money is just proof of what I couldn't make them see. She's the only success story in this family. 1 year after Grandpa's death, I held a memorial at the Greenwich House. I invited everyone he'd actually loved. Judge Morrison, his sister Rose, who flew up from Florida, Mrs. Chen, Thomas, the staff who'd cared for him, and the few genuine friends he'd had. My family wasn't invited, but they showed up anyway. Security stopped them at the gate. "This is our father's memorial," Dad shouted through the intercom. "No," I responded. "This is a memorial for people who love Joseph Patterson. You loved his money. There's a difference." They made a scene, calling the police, claiming I was keeping them from their father's memorial. The police, who'd seen the news coverage, weren't sympathetic. "Ma'am has a restraining order against you," the officer told Dad. "You need to leave." Yes, I'd gotten restraining orders after Alexandra tried to break into the house, and Daniel showed up drunk at my school. The memorial was beautiful. Judge Morrison gave a eulogy about their friendship. Rose told stories about young Joey, who'd always stood up for underdogs. The kindergartners sang Grandpa's favorite song. The seniors from the nursing homes shared how our Sunday visits had changed their lives. Then came the surprise. Marcus stood up with another envelope. Joe asked me to read this 1 year after his death. When emotions had settled, he announced, "It's his final message. To those gathered here, you represent my real legacy. Not money or property, but connections made without agenda. Melissa, you've proven exactly who I knew you were. You didn't let wealth change you. You let it amplify your goodness. To my biological family, if they're listening from outside the gates where they belong, I watched you all chase wealth while missing worth. You had a grandfather who loved you, a father, a brother. You traded that for expectations of inheritance. You got exactly what you earned, nothing. But I want to tell you something. It's not too late. Not for the money, that ship has sailed, but for your souls. Daniel, your surgical skills could heal people who can't afford care. Alexandra, your legal knowledge could defend those who have no voice. Robert, your business acumen could build something meaningful instead of just profitable. Patricia, your social connections could raise funds for causes that matter. You won't do it, of course. You'll stay bitter, stay grasping, stay empty. But Melissa will do it all. She'll heal through teaching, defend through advocacy, build through community, connect through compassion. One person doing what 4 of you should have done. My final words. Melissa was mocked for years for being less than you. The will proved she was more than all of you combined. She wasn't my favorite because I left her money. I left her money because she was my favorite kind of person, the kind who loves without keeping score. Joe Patterson, grandfather to one, stranger to the rest. The silence was profound. Through the windows, we could see my family by their cars, being escorted away by police. That night, Victoria came by with her new baby, Joseph, named for Grandpa despite Daniel's protests. "I want him to know where his name came from," she said. "Not from his biological grandfather who chases money, but from his spiritual grandfather who valued love." As I held baby Joseph in Grandpa's library, surrounded by photos of our Sundays together, I understood the full measure of his gift. Not the 14 million, not the houses, not the status reversal. He'd given me proof that I was always enough, always worthy, always loved. The family that mocked me still exists somewhere, posting bitter Facebook updates and filing futile lawsuits. But I have a different family now. Hundreds of kindergartners who've learned to read, dozens of forgotten elderly who have someone to visit them, and the memory of a grandfather who saw me clearly when everyone else looked through me. Every Sunday, I visit his grave, then spend the day at the nursing homes. I drive a better car now. The Honda finally died, but I wear the same simple clothes, teach the same kindergarten class, live the same values. The only difference is now I can live them at scale. Grandpa's headstone reads, Joseph William Patterson, federal judge, beloved grandfather, but I had a bench installed nearby with a plaque. Every Sunday for 416 weeks, Joe and Melissa played chess here in spirit. The game continues. And it does. Every move I make, every choice between kindness and indifference, every Sunday I show up for someone forgotten. It's all part of the long game Grandpa taught me. The one where winning isn't about what you accumulate, but about who you become. They mocked me for years. The will proved I was the favorite. But the truth is simpler. I was the only one who didn't care about being the favorite. I just wanted to be his granddaughter. And in the end, that made all the difference.